Click the links to join the channel here or over on Subscribestar. So a lot of stuff with Twitter is people post tweets or links and clips and things, and then you look at them like, did you listen to the clip? People post links that think it says one thing, and then you go, the link you posted, the source you posted actually says the opposite of what you're claiming it to say. And they look at you like you have two heads because they never bothered to listen to it or read the thing that's like, but I thought it said no, you got to read this stuff first or listen to the. She doesn't put Sean Connery on blast. They're both having a laugh. Like she's making a point, but they're also both having a laugh at how silly women are at the end. But they clipped off that last little bit. But then somebody else in the comments included the clip of them laughing at females in general. I mean, it was a different time. So Barbara Walters versus Sean Connery and defaming the dead. They played this old clip on Twitter from, I guess, 30 years ago now, which to me doesn't feel that old to me, to you, to us, if you're over a certain age. But it's a different world now, and it was a better world then. First of all, Barbara Walters was a scumbag. If you look at her interviews and who she defended, the Epsteins of the 80s, she's not the liberal hero that modern liberals seem to think she is. Though, since she was defending monsters back then, and that seems to be the direction the modern left is going in today. So who knows? If you told me 10 years ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago, that the left would be doing this to kids, I just, I wouldn't have got it, right? I would have thought, oh, surely somebody else do something. It's like, yeah, who? Anyway, just pause for a moment and imagine what man-made horrors the future holds. Besides the obvious prurient ones with those under the age of majority, the real horrors is that we sit on our couches and watch it happen because there's a sense that there's nothing in America to fight for. It's dangerous to be right when the state is wrong, and now you have the police defending this. To change it at this point would probably not be done via a booth. So she was the globalist media machine back then. She was always ready to defend the machine, and I think Oprah Winfrey was also. You look at a lot of these people who are deeply entrenched in Hollywood, and you realize what skeletons they must have in their closets. Hollywood is it's an inconceivably dirty, evil place. Though some people started to see a little bit of that with the Epstein's Island stuff, because if that didn't happen, it would have sounded like a far-right conspiracy theory. And then when it all actually happens, and not only does it happen, but the two people involved, Brunel and Epstein, both got deleted in their jail cells, which goes down a whole different rabbit hole of well, who's actually running these countries? Because it's like the state is supposed to protect these people, but it seems like there's a state that's more powerful than the state we know. Oh, that's just conspiracy theories. But it all actually happened. They didn't delete themselves. And the cameras in both the French prisons and the American prisons didn't turn off. They were deleted by an outside force. You'd have to be a child to reach it. And isn't it weird that the media never really investigated? They just took the story at face value. Yeah, because if they can get to Epstein and Brunel in their prison cells, then they can surely get to Joe Bob the reporter. It's like, the guy's not stupid. Nobody's gonna he committed self-deletion in a drug deal gone wrong. So he got deleted with 2 to the back of the head. It was a robbery or something. He was out jogging in a suburban neighborhood, and he was weird. He was robbed. Yeah, nothing was taken, but he did get 2 to the back of the head. Oh, that's weird. Yeah, that's weird. Oh, it was a reporter. He covered the Maxwell, Allison Nathan story, and he got 2 to the back of the head. Oh, that's kind of odd. Yeah. Anyone going to talk about that? No, we're just going to move on. Anyway, so she was the part of the globalist machine back then. The world was different 30 years ago. It was a better place. The world is worse now and will be much worse in the future. And I say these obvious things because not enough people are saying these obvious things. Sean Connery, a much enjoyed actor who's in a ton of good movies, he was kind of busy making movies his whole life. I want to say sort of the Harrison Ford of his time, which might not be the great comparison because I think they're the same age. But it feels like Sean Connery came a generation before Harrison Ford. They have both been in monster hit movies, and Barbara was always one of the media parasites cashing in. So they do this interview, and I remember when it came out, it wasn't a big deal. It was one guy talking about back then, people had paper magazines, and I had a BLT friend who was all into those paper magazines talking about celebrities, and I looked at him and I looked at these celebrity magazines. I'm like, why do you care about like Brad Pitt and I don't know, I can't even remember, Jennifer Lopez and the girl who's into not Laura Croft, and whatever, all those people, like the Friends characters of the 90s. Like, why would you spend money on a magazine to read about this kind of? I didn't get it. I still don't get it today. Anyway, it wasn't a big deal when it came out. I mean, it was something that was just kind of cute and naughty, and they just moved on. It was one guy talking about his opinion. Things were different then, because if someone wanted to bitch and moan back then, they had to write actual paper letters and mail them. It took time, and in that time, you were able to cool. Back when stamps were, what, 20 cents, 25 cents? Back in that time, you were able to cool off, and then you started to think, like, well, what am I going to write this guy for? He's got an opinion about something. He's a public figure, so we get to hear his opinion. Everyone has different opinions. Why am I bothering to write him a letter to tell him that his opinion is wrong? It's like, great, adults have different opinions because we're not all robots. Humans have different belief systems. You end up writing the letter, thinking about it, and then you just throw it away when you realize the whole thing is pointless. So in the interview, he said something about women getting the last word and needing to gently correct them with a little corporal correction. Even in the modern 90s, which in the 90s we felt very, very modern, political correctness was rearing its ugly head again, but people were laughing their asses off at it. And then after 9/11, it all came back. It was almost as if it wasn't a big deal because there was one guy talking about his private life in his own private relationships. There's not much you could say about it, at least not back then. It was kind of a complicated topic because he's telling you about a consensual relationship. If you don't approve of it, then you don't have to get involved. It's sort of a bigger social issue of different belief systems and how much you want people to run their own lives or how much you want the state to get involved in people's lives. And we have seen that the state seems to destroy everything they touch. So the interview wasn't a big deal even in the modern 90s. It was like, okay, well, Sean Connery is from a different generation. It's his relationships, it's his personal belief. There's not much you can do about it. The soy boys and cat ladies couldn't cancel him back then because the internet existed, but it wasn't social media on cell phones. That level of technology is pretty recent. It's like within the past 15-ish years when it was so widespread that everyone had, like a social media app on a smartphone. The thing is that level of tech also sort of accelerated the decline of everything. Now things are, excuse the language, foobar, because mentally unhinged soy boys and cat ladies can get on Twitter instantly and put the toxic left-wing hatred out into the world. Then it finds the left-wing hate network and spreads. It's all built on nothing. It's just pointless virtue signaling, the ultimate in bored first world problems. It's funny because most of the world actually believes in Sean Connery's point, see Q434 for reference, but because he's a Scottish guy, it's open season because he's a safe target. They never should have given these soy people social media. It really shows you the endless conflict of people with different belief systems trying to get along in the same space. It's silly to pretend that any of this is working. The other issue is they're happy to judge somebody from 30 years ago for his words. They get online and they rattle their empty can. And all my references are either going to be from Metallica, Guns N' Roses, the Bible, or Shakespeare, and they're all used interchangeably. Does it ever occur to them that they might also be judged by future generations? Like, seriously, that thought never goes through their head. Since the ethics and values are ever changing, how can you possibly judge somebody from the past? The past is a different universe, especially now in a West without a core, without a dogma. It's just a commercial zone Sodom Weimar where your belief systems are taught to you by social media companies and government school propaganda. Now you're defending, or the left is defending, trans drag queen kids literally sterilizing themselves. Those are the current left-wing values of 2022. And if you were against grooming kids now, the future left will call you Hugo Boss because the West isn't anything anymore. It's just a commercial zone of nothingness. Unless, the social mores change in the future and people look back. It's like they look back with the events of the past 3 years and they go like, "Oh, what are you talking about? We were always against the lockdowns. What are you talking about? We didn't force anyone to take those things." Yeah. I mean, that's how it always happens. It's like, what? Masks. I never said anything about that. What are you talking about? Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.